a lot of use cases in multiple domains. And finally, last but definitely not least, is Mr. Ruan here, who's a lead data scientist as well, working at Octave. Maybe to start things off, I think I'd like to put a question across to the panel, which is there's a lot of buzz about AI, and especially like in our industry, and it's very relevant today. How have you seen artificial intelligence change your day-to-day life? Are there tasks that you now automate? Is there stuff in your personal life you find easier that AI gives you input on? Upul, maybe I'll start with you. What do you see as the biggest driver of change of AI for you today?
Yeah, thanks, mate. Thanks for the kind introduction as well. So AI is definitely at a very interesting junction today. And for me, what has been most transformational is the fact that I have been able to essentially outsource the boring stuff I do, like writing emails, writing documents, correcting grammar, and actually putting sentences in the correct format, writing executive packs, all of that. And I've sort of have a lot more time to focus on things that I truly love doing, which is essentially your creative stuff, and that has been transformational for me.
I think that's a common theme, isn't it? You're allowing all the kind of menial work that usually takes up the most time to be kind of just given away, and you're allowed to spend more time on the creative aspects of your work. It's much more of a value driver.
Yeah.
Bhunika, what about you? What do you see yourself kind of using AI for day to day?
Yeah, on top of what Upul said, Adil, I would also like to highlight, especially this Gen AI has been tremendously supporting me to improve productivity. Especially, I think I have been using this as a tool to generate knowledge, or rather like a search engine. So it almost kind of replaced the search engine for me now. So I think last 6 to 8 months, I have been using these Gen AI models to research on any new topic, to gather information. So it could go through multiple articles and give you a summary. So the key points. So it has been very effective and very fast rather than you Googling it and going through multiple documents. I think that is one of the key changes in my life for the last, I think, 6 to 10 months. On top of that, if I take something unrelated to work, I have been using these Gen AI models again to keep track of stock prices, to analyze trends, to compare two stocks. So it's really easy. You just have to give the correct prompt. It will do the entire analysis for you. But as we need to be cautious when we take the insights from the model. You need to have a bit of domain knowledge and you need to use your judgment to validate the insights. But I think as far as I'm concerned, it has been giving very effective results. And even up to the level of planning my next vacation, what are the hotels I need to stay, even the entire travel plan, it kind of generated for me. And I'm really happy with that. And it's kind of now part of my life to use AI in the day-to-day activities.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, it's just that no one could have expected it to touch on like so many different parts of our lives, right? And I think that's what's interesting about how quickly it's scaled. Ruan, as someone from a very technical background, in your day-to-day, how is it affecting your life?
Yes. First of all, Adil, can you confirm me that you can hear me properly?
Yes.
Yes, nice. First of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about the role of artificial intelligence in shaping organizational strategies. For me personally, working in this data science field is like, exploring a puzzle. We analyze large amount of data and to find valuable insight, and this is going to be helpful for the businesses to grow exponentially. I do have the same sentiment that Upul and Purnika shared previously, how AI has been helping for our day-to-day life, right? For me personally, I actually use a lot of Gen AI stuff because even for the problem solving part as well. But if I'm looking at this broadly, so AI actually help us to save lots of time, so we can focus on the more areas like, problem solving, creative work, or critical thinking. And if I talk about my background, like, so predominantly we will be using these AI modeling for our day-to-day problem solving. What I really like about this particular field is that it allows me to implement a solution and also see what is the business benefit that they are getting, right? So with all of these things, it keep me excited in this particular field, and I'm looking forward to sharing my experience about the uses of AI.
Thanks, Ron. I think with that, I think we've understood how it's touched each of you all personally, as well as, I mean, with work. When we consider the overall topic, considerations and pitfalls for organizations, right? I think we can break it up into maybe 3 or 4 key pillars. And probably the biggest pillar to start with would be, how can organizations use AI right now? And like, how can they integrate it into their workflows and observe the benefits of it? Upul, maybe I'll start with you. If you could provide an overview of the technologies that are currently being integrated, and what should organizations look for and keep track of to ensure that it's being implemented correctly.
Of course, really interesting question, Adil. So I think for me, the way organizations could actually integrate AI technologies, different kinds of AI technologies, right? I mean, the buzzword right now is Gen AI, but there's actually a plethora of AI technologies that we can exploit. So from an organizational perspective, how an organization can integrate this into organizational workflows, it really boils down to 4 pillars essentially for me. And I think the first pillar there is essentially you can use AI technologies to automate routine tasks. And that actually allows you to have exponential benefits from an efficiency perspective that would actually give you an operational cost benefit as well and competitive advantage compared to your competitors. And the second pillar is obviously our traditional data analysis and insights, which is our bread and butter, and for any organization as well, implementing data analytics and AI technologies, that should really be your starting point. So I'm essentially going through the analytics lifecycle, figuring out what are the insights that you can drive or data-driven decisions that you can drive and gain competitive advantage through actionable insights. Third pillar is essentially enhanced customer experience, which will obviously drive a lot of customer satisfaction, like NPS scores, as well as generating a competitive advantage for your organization through satisfied customers. And that is currently a focus area for a lot of organizations as well, especially with the advent of generative AI models, which can essentially mimic human behavior when you are actually chatting with them. It's really hard to sort of, even if you actually take a normal chatbot, what we used to have as chatbots a couple of years ago versus the chatbots we currently have within different organizations, even as support personnel, astronomically ahead of time. And I think that actually gives a really good experience, holistic experience to the customers, which in essence will actually drive competitive advantages for your organization. The last pillar for me is essentially something that both Ruan and Purnika touched base on initially as well. It actually allows accelerated innovation trajectories and accelerated product development trajectories as well. It will actually act as a buddy for you to sort of bump conversations, bump ideas together, essentially figure out not just solutions like Ruan mentioned, but actually look at how to realize the benefits of these solutions when these solutions are implemented. And that actually has a huge competitive advantage there, not just by way of you being able to drive innovative solutions, but also cutting down your time to market by a significant amount as well, because you actually get this essentially all-knowing buddy that allows you to bump ideas with yourself, provide feedback to your ideas, and actually help you change your ideas and implement them as well. So I think those 4 pillars are what and how organizations could integrate the emerging AI technologies to individual organizations.
Thanks, Paul. I think you constantly reiterate, I think, that across each of these, you're gaining that competitive advantage by adopting AI, obviously. But I think all of us can agree that if this is not either communicated or presented in a way for decision making to happen in those organizations, the people that matter, it can be very difficult, right, to implement. So, Ruan, what do you think in terms of how do we communicate, and what does AI do to contribute to better decision making for organizations? Are there any examples you can think of in terms of in the industry, in terms of the impact that AI has had, maybe specifically on analytics and insights, and maybe any other pillars that Upal was talking about?
Yeah, I iterate what Upul mentioned in the previous question that actually AI can do things faster, efficiently, and more accurately than human, right? So AI in decision making is like having a super smart assistant. Just imagine like someone can shift through tons of data in no time and can identify trends, patterns as human we might miss, right? So, for example, like think about a company that trying to figure out what product will be hot for the next season. So AI can analyze past data, also integrate the social media trends and even the weather data to predict what's going to be sell well, right? And or more like if you look at more serious setting like healthcare, so doctors can use AI help to diagnose diseases. AI can, for example, AI can look at medical images or any other medical history and can spot sign of illness like cancer, right? So I identify these diseases earlier than before. So it's going to be really helpful for the doctors and healthcare industry. It's for me, it's like it's a game changer for the treatment as well. Um, in short, AI is like ultimate decision support tool, which is lot of strategic and complex decisions.
Thanks, Rohan. I think, yeah, that's very clear and synthesized very well. One thing that comes to me is when you mention, I mean, the different domains and the impact that it has in different ways, is there's a lot of sensitive data that we're working with, and there's a lot of things maybe in a lot of domains that we have to look out for when adopting AI. Maybe I'll come to Purnika first on this. Are there any considerations we need to make in terms of the impact of integrating AI, particularly for workforces? I think that's a big one right now, is that big question of, does AI replace certain jobs, and how can organizations support employees through kind of the transition to adopting the data and tech and handling it?
Yeah. So Adil, I'll cover the first part of the question first. Now, integration of AI into the workforce, challenges and opportunities, both are there. But people usually highlight only the challenges, right? So job displacement, job redesign, the skill gap, all are like posed as challenges to the workforce. But just like any other technology, even AI has the positive side of integration with the workforce. It improves the employee productivity, decision-making ability, gives a decision support system. So increasing productivity, efficiency, those are the positives of the AI integration into the workforce. Even in the past, I think any other disruptive technology in the past had the same effect on the workforce. For example, if we take digitization as an example, back then there were a lot of manual data entry, manual data collection. But with digitization, the systems were digitized and a lot of these manual workers didn't have jobs. But then again, it created a lot more other job opportunities in terms of database management, data centers, systems, application development. The entire set of new jobs were created as part of these disruptive technologies. So same will happen even with AI. But people initially fear like, okay, I will lose my job. There will be no jobs for future, but it will generate a lot more job opportunities and it will create a lot more value for the humans. It will automate the repetitive task and humans can focus only on the cognitive functions where human ability is required. So I think when integrating AI into the workforce, the organization has a pivotal role in communicating this and to have an open conversation with the workforce if there are any tasks that needs to be automated and replaced by AI. you need to have that open conversation and make them aware. So it should not come as a surprise one day, okay, now from this day onwards, these systems will take care of your work and now you don't have much of work to do. So this job redesign has to be done together with the employees with that open communication, clear out their doubts, clear out their anxieties, fears, and then do a collective engagement and do a job redesign. And then organization has to support on navigating this journey, especially with this skill gap. There will be a lot more skills required for the workforce to work with AI systems. So it will be technical uplift of the employee base on the AI systems, how to handle with AI systems, how to make the decisions with AI systems, and even operation and maintenance of the AI system. So these things need to be trained. And on top of that, most importantly, this change management process is what I think organizations need to play a pivotal role. So change management can't happen overnight. So it will be happen in a phase-wise manner. An organization has to have that process where you will have champions of change to role model this so that people know, okay, there's a champion of change. This is how this needs to be done. There's a role model that they can follow. And then coaching programs, mentoring programs, learning and certification. So things like that, the entire change management is, I think, what organizations need to invest time and money on. Yeah.
Understood, Monica. I think, yeah, management in particular needs to understand that this industry is being revolutionized and shifted. So handling in a very sensitive manner is important. Now, people is obviously one facet of the challenges that organizations face. Upul, are there any other significant challenges with implementing AI? And what are your thoughts on how these have been addressed and any advice on how people should maybe take them up? Yeah.
Of course, Purnika actually touched base on quite a lot of things that I deeply resonate with as well. So I think we can actually start with the skill gap and talent acquisition. Like Purnika mentioned, you need to, as an organization, you need to have a very deliberate plan. It's a matter of not job displacement, rather job redefinition, where you actually upskill your workers so that you actually achieve two things. You bridge that skill gap, and you also essentially acquire new talent that way as well, who are ingrained within your organization as well. So there's some cultural elements there. But just taking a step back from that and looking at other things, I think we are all, so when we talk about AI technologies, all of these AI technologies are built on top of data. And when we are talking about data, it is still it is still a large challenge, but also paramount importance for us to consider data privacy, data security, even for AI systems and AI technologies. That's not just to say the data that is used to train these AI systems, but also when we are actually using these AI systems, what data are we exposing these AI systems to? Are they actually using this data for nefarious purposes? Are they within our bounds? Can we actually control the amount of information that we send? If they are actually using our information to do something else, do we know what that is? So all of that is super important. And I think this problem is actually still getting worked on, especially from a generative AI perspective, because it's all new from an enterprise context. But there are established methods for data privacy, security, data masking for PII information, personally identifiable information, and things like that. Another thing with data that you need to really focus on is data quality, as well as different ethical considerations, and ensuring that the bias, you keep the bias in check as well. It's hard to avoid bias in data sets, but it's about being cognizant about the biases, understanding that these biases are there, and actively working to minimize or mitigate the risks posed by these biases as well. And there's again established literature that actually looks at this bias minimization, increasing data quality from a preventive maintenance perspective, as well as so preventive and detective controls, both perspectives for data quality. The other thing that's largely overlooked when we are talking about integrating AI technologies in terms of challenges is how do you actually, because you as an organization the organization wasn't created today or yesterday, right? So you have a set of practices, a set of legacy software that you are running on, maybe the resource planning softwares or CRM softwares or whatever it is. Integrating the new AI technologies into your old legacy software stack is actually really, really challenging. It's often overlooked because the AI technologies are very well hyped, and we buy into the hype. We try to get that technology on board. But as an organization, are we actually suited to integrate this technology, or are there better alternatives for us that might not have the same level of hype, but that integrates much better with our environment?
Yeah.
So
I think
that,
yeah, that's just probably the most significant part of
yeah,
determining success of implementing AI in an organization.
for
And
sure.
yeah, I think maybe Ruan, if I suggest a hypothetical, that we've listened to Purnika and Upul suggest all the challenges and blockers that are there with integrating that we should look out for and how we adapt to them. Now let's assume that you've done all that and you've stressed the importance of taking on these new technologies. And 3 months down the line, you're being asked by your leadership, where's the success? How do we measure this? Like, what are the indicators? How should we plan for that beforehand to know that we're on track, to know that, especially with the ever-changing industry that we're in, we're constantly keeping track of those metrics or indicators of success?
Yes. It's a very good question, actually. Measuring the success of AI implementation is really essential for an organization because it's a very big investment and a commitment, right? So I would like to break this down into two parts. One is how organization can demonstrate the value of AI implementation. Secondly, how organization can sustain the efficacy of the AI implementation in the long run, right? So what we normally do is once we completed the AI solution, we do a pilot, right? So in this pilot, we are doing this pilot to showcase the potential value of AI and in kind of a control environment. And this will happen before full-scale deployment. Uh, Pilot allows us to do test hypotheses, validate assumptions, and also demonstrating financial and non-financial KPIs. For example, additional revenue generated due to the AI implementation or the AI solution, or cost reduction, like labor cost. It could be resource utilization as well. Also, kind of efficiency improvement, like process cycle time, maybe throughput, maybe out of stock, etc., etc. Right? And also there will be matrices like related to customer satisfaction as well. For example, customer retention rate, maybe conversion, click rate, or we can even utilize complaints as well. Um, and there could be many more matrices. But what I'm going to say is the matrices that we are going to track during a pilot is going to be very subjective to the problem that we are solving. Secondly, it is really important to sustain the AI solution in the long run. Otherwise, the value that we have realized during the pilot stage might not be able to achieve. So, one of the most important thing that I have seen is in order to sustain the efficacy of the solution is the data quality assurance. If you put garbage into the model, what you will be getting is the garbage out from the model. So it is really important to implement processes or framework to assure the data quality and the data which you are feed into the machine learning or AI model is highly reliable and accurate, right? Secondly, we need to have performance monitoring matrices, right? So we need to track the accuracy of the model, or we need to track the data drift of the underlying data, right? And once that particular stage is, once those matrices has been set up, the next one is to model maintenance. So models, AI models required to regularly update and retrain to address any drift of the AI model can have. Then another aspect is user adoption and feedback, right? So it is important to gather whatever the feedback we are getting from the either business or from the users and validate those feedback. And if necessary, we require to integrate that with the AI system. That is really important. And one like main consideration, I think even Upul mentioned this one, that is ethical compliance, right? So we need to ensure that AI system is actually adhere to the ethical guideline of the organization, not only within the organization, but also the social values as well, right? But by taking all these measures, what organization can guarantee that they will be getting the full potential of AI and the value going to be sustained in the long run.
Thanks, Ron. I think you outlined, I think, important kind of milestones that, or kind of significant steps that companies should take to ensure that they're tracking these metrics, as you say, correctly. And interestingly, I think you touched on the ethical implications, and that's a very hot topic right now, especially regarding artificial intelligence. Purnika, what are some of the things that maybe, and I know Upul touched on it a little bit, and we've been having that conversation bit by bit. Now I think it's time to focus on it. When it comes to privacy, when it comes to bias, accountability, those ethical implications, how should those be considered, especially by organizations? Yeah.
Yeah. I think Upul also touched base on the bias. I will take the privacy, bias, accountability, the three aspects of ethical AI separately, Adil. So just to touch upon on Upul's point on the bias. Now, bias is inherent in the data set. So what Upul also mentioned is it's difficult to avoid the biases in the data set, but we need to be cognizant on that there could be a bias. Now, I will take a quick example to explain this. Now, let's say we are developing an AI model or an advanced analytics model to find a suitability of a candidate for a particular job role. Now, if our training data set has a lot of data samples from one particular gender, the model could have an inherent bias towards that particular gender being always be predicted as the highest suitable candidate. So if this model is, if we don't know that it has an inherent bias, and if we roll it out in the production, one particular gender will be at a disadvantage because they will always get a lower score. It's not because the data science model is incorrect, but just because there's inherent bias in the data set. So what we can do is, I think there are ways of auditing the data sets. So the data scientist or whoever the developer should be able to do that data set audit and see whether there are inherent biases in the data itself. So if there are biases, there are certain techniques that you can adjust the biases, maybe manually integrating certain other data points. And maybe they can develop the model and then test the model with altogether a different set of data set to see whether this bias is available in even on the output. So that is one mechanism of how you avoid the bias. But we need to be very cognizant. Just because we have a imbalanced data set, we can't just train the model from that data set and say, okay, this is a system generated output. This is what the AI model predicted. That's where the accountability part comes in. You can't attribute it to a AI systems and say, okay, this is what the output is, and this is why we kind of went ahead with this decision. So human has to be in the loop, and the human should use their business judgment, ethical considerations, and see if there is a bias, how do I act upon it? So this is how the bias could be eliminated or kind of minimized in AI systems. And organizations should have different set of policies, guidelines to support this reducing bias in AI models. And then along the same lines, then the accountability part comes in. Then who takes the final accountability of a decision that was given by an AI model? Again, you have to have a human in the loop who will take the responsibility along with the AI output. but also the AI system should be explainable. So more and more organizations are now developing explainable AI models so that human knows what is the underlying justification of giving this output. So this explainability plays a major role here because now AI models are not a black box that you feed data and you get an output, but there has to be some sort of a justification why this input was gone through the model and came as this output. And this explainability plays a major role in the accountability. But then again, even though you have explainable AI system, you need to have a final accountable human in the loop who can take the ultimate responsibility. And then along the privacy part of the ethical considerations, I think there are three main elements to privacy, that is data security, the user consent, and the transparency. When a user is interacting with the product or services, it generates a lot of data points. So the organizations are collecting these data for their business processes. So the business is collecting this data, but the user need to be aware that this data is collected. That is transparency. And user should give us explicit consent to collect this data and use this data for whatever the reasons that organization set forth. And then the third element is data security. Although you have the transparency and user consent, you also need to have proper security mechanisms to protect this data because it will have PII data and even business sensitive data. You can't let it idle somewhere and leak it to a third party. So security measures has to be there to protect the PII data and from unauthorized access. So these three key elements, I think there are certain other elements also in the responsible AI, but I think privacy, bias, and accountability comes as the main components in ethical AI.
Thanks, Punik. I think, yeah, across those three, the common theme that comes out is the need for transparency. And I think what you continue to reiterate is that collaboration, that balance between the use of AI and also the human input that is needed or oversight that is needed to ensure these potential impacts are taken accounted for. Ruan, can you maybe touch on, I think, more specifically some technical or maybe some solutions to creating these governance structures and maybe a few considerations we should make when implementing these techniques that Purnika mentioned to ensure that AI used in any organization is done responsibly? Are there any examples that you can share?
Sure, Adi. I think in the previous question, Purnika explained why certain safeguards are required for the AI solution. So that is why organizations should have AI governance structure. And this will ensure AI tool and systems are safe, ethical, and aligned with social value, right? There are a lot of existing framework, but fundamentally, AI governance structure has four pillars. That is govern, map, measure, and manage, right? In the governance component, what we does is we create policies, standards, and ethics related to AI use within the organization. In this phase, we need to ensure that all AI initiatives align with the organizational values, ethical principles, also with legal obligation, and should be transparent, and also organizations should have the accountability, right? Then we have the map stage. This involving identifying and more importantly documenting all AI application and projects within the organization. For example, developing comprehensive catalog of AI projects, which include detailing out the scope, algorithm which have used, or data sources which have used, and features and areas of application. So all these things need to be documented, right? In the measuring stage, here we are focused on the assessing the performance, impact, and risk associated with the AI applications. This often involves establishing matrices and KPIs to evaluate AI effectiveness, efficiency, and I think this is also covered by Upul, that the fairness and also compliance and ethical standard. it is really important to AI to be fair. For an example, implementing a regular audit, through implementing regular audit of AI system, we can check for the accuracy, fairness, and compliance. Finally, we have the manage stage. So this include uh, actually updating the AI models as necessary, addressing identified bias, because sometimes at the first stage we might not be able to identify the bias, right? Sometimes from the certain feedback and through certain feedback you will be able to identify. So updating the AI models incorporate those feedback also really important. For example, setting up teams and processes for periodic review and update AI models to incorporate new data, adjusting feedback, and changing. Or it could be because due to changing regulatory landscape, because that landscape also keep evolving, right? And if we, I think together with all of these four components of the AI governance framework, I think organization can responsibly navigate the complex landscape of AI development, and they can use the full potential of AI.
Thanks, Rohan. I think we've spent a good amount of time now talking about what AI is right now, how you can implement it in your organization, what are things to look for in terms of pitfalls. Personally, the most exciting thing for me about this entire topic in industry is it's constantly changing, right? What you have today could be old and irrelevant tomorrow, because the minute someone puts out a new proof of concept, then you've got 5 other companies competing and telling you, oh, look, we've been developing that too. So obviously, with that comes the requirement for organizations to adapt and to scale. Maybe I'll go back to you, Upul. What are some strategies and best practices that you believe organizations should look out for and they should start thinking about now?
Of course, that's a really interesting question, and you actually sort of phrase it in such a way that we cannot actually stop talking about the scaling aspect, but also how do you sort of adapt it to different organizational contexts as well. So let's talk about scaling first. What happens with this hype that we get with AI technologies is that we are actually very quick to try and incorporate these techniques, but then we have to be very, very deliberate about aligning that with our organizational strategy and mapping out not just sort of way that can fit in, but how that will fit in. How do you actually modularize it enough so that if the solution has been superseded or is superseded tomorrow or next year, how do we actually bring in another solution in a seamless manner rather than making this solution a legacy solution and having to implement the whole change control process again. So we're making it modularized so that we can actually change interchangeable components. Also looking at providing that flexible structure as well. The first thing that we sort of just touched base on was the strategic alignment, right? The reason why we have to be very deliberate about strategic alignment when we try to integrate these new AI technologies is because there's a large capex involvement and a large opex involvement as well. So you have a lot of capital, a large capital expenditure that you need to do in order to integrate these technologies within your organization. But that's just not the only component there. Traditionally, when we actually talk about AI technologies, the operational cost element is relatively low. But especially with this advent of generative AI technologies, the operational cost element is actually significant as well. Then you need to talk about doing a cost benefit analysis and actually figuring out, does it make sense? Is it aligned to our organizational strategy to bring in this new AI technology? However fancy it is, if it does not generate enough benefit to warrant the operational and capital expenditure that we are spending as an organization, there is a question whether we need to bring it at all. So when you're looking at scaling, that's something that we really need to be very deliberate about from the start, from the get-go, at the point where you actually think about integrating new AI technologies into your organization. The other part of this equation is what one actually articulated very well. How are we going to put the governance mechanisms and compliance mechanisms, and how are we actually going to scale that as well? It's easy for us to actually put governance mechanisms in place and compliance checks in place for a small proof of concept. But if we actually want to roll it across an organization to multiple people, how do we actually handle the governance mechanism? What is the governance mechanism we have? What is the compliance mechanism? How do we actually ensure how do we enforce the compliance to our regulators? How do we actually sort of ensure that all of our workforce actually adheres to these compliance requirements? So that is something that we really need to be deliberate about when we scale it as well. And so far, what I've actually talked about in terms of scaling is nothing related to how do you actually scale this technically, because that technical part is the easy part, right? You actually vertically scale it, you horizontally scale it. There's different ways, and it's well established on how to do that technically. But that change control process and actually integrating that as part of your organizational culture, that's where scaling is really difficult. But also where we need to put a lot of deliberate effort in thinking about this before we start any of these efforts.
Thanks, Upul. Yeah, I think like you mentioned, I mean, that is the biggest thing to consider. But one of the the reasons why so many people are interested in this is because it's such a lot of innovation happening. So sometimes it might not even take too much to convince your leadership when you can show such exciting results, you know. But maybe we can touch on a little bit about what are some driving innovations we're seeing emerging from these technologies today. Purnika, I don't know, maybe if you could touch on some examples of certain developments in the field that you think are particularly of note to call out?
Yeah, I think the hot topic is Gen AI for sure. So even on Gen AI now, there's content creation was there, but then again it came to image generation. Now there's video generation AI tools, and even you can get a voice prompt and then generate your own song. So there are a lot of things happening on Gen AI. So I think Gen AI will be the future, at least for the next decade. I think there will be a lot of revolutionary things happening through Gen AI. And I'm super excited about this new video generation stuff that recently released with OpenAI. I think it can generate marvelous video outputs, imaginative videos to realistic videos, attention to detail. And at the moment, it's a very short video clip, but I think it will revolutionize the industry. And maybe in future, we will see movies that were developed through a text prompt. You just input the text prompt and it will generate the entire movie for you. So I think that is one area I'm super excited, and I'm yet to see the practical results of that. So a lot of POCs and tools are out there. And apart from Gen AI, I think another one I'm excited to see is on this federated learning, where organizations collaboratively develop AI models without compromising their data privacy and security. So I think this has been widely used in healthcare industry, where healthcare, these medical records are very sensitive and they can't publish it anywhere or share with any other party. But with federated learning, you can have a one pre-trained model, and then organizations can use that pre-trained model and separately, individually retrain the model with their data set. And then only the developed final model, refined parameters will be sent back to the original server, and there it will kind of aggregate all the results, and it will generate a better pre-trained global model. I think that is where I think a lot of industry, especially financial services industry and healthcare industry, is now looking to develop collaborative AI, where you can still preserve the data security while doing a better AI model with utilizing diverse data assets. So these are two hot things that I'm super excited about. I think even explainable AI I touched upon earlier, that is again taking momentum in the industry. How do you develop explainable AI models.
Thanks, Purika. But personally, I mean, I think we are at a point in time now where some of the stuff you said, like, tomorrow we might find out if there's some significant advancement, and Gen AI is not even the latest buzzword
Yeah,
anymore. Yeah, that's kind of
probably.
the danger, right? But thank you so much for that. Um, Ruan, I think Punika has touched on kind of the concepts and the innovations themselves. Looking ahead, what do you believe the future is, particularly for organizations over the next decade, in terms of adopting AI innovations? What are those key points that you feel you can cover? Yeah.
Yes. To be honest, I really like this era we are in right now because there's an exponential growth in AI. And and Purnika and Upul spoke so highly about generative AI. I think it it makes sense because the creativity and the scalability and the customization it brings is truly remarkable. I think we all have the experience of using a generative AI platform, and we all know like how helpful that is like for our day-to-day work. But what we can expect for the next few years is nothing but further advancement, like Purnika mentioned. If you look at from the organizational perspective, I think one of the area would organization invested would be AI-driven decision making. Um, I think some of the companies they have already started this, and but organization will be looking at processing a vast amount of data that they have and generate insight. And this concept decision intelligence will become crucial for strategic planning and operational decisions. Another area of interest would be personalized customer experience for sure. AI has the ability to analyze the customer data and identify the patterns and predict preferences. So this will set new standard for customer engagement. So there will be lots of AI-driven hyper-personalized product recommendations. So you will be seeing a lot of SMS like personalized SMS, I think, uh, for various platforms. And one of my personal interest is this collaborative AI because I strongly believe that in the future there will be a greater collaboration between human and AI. So there will be a lot of AI system designed to work alongside with human. For example, application for healthcare diagnostics, treatment planning, or even financial analysis and advisory service. There could be many more, but but for the next few years, I think there will be a lot of system implemented to work with human. Um, then I also believe there will be a lot of AI application in talent management, I would say. I think a platform like LinkedIn, they are already doing this one. Try to give the job preferences based on our profile and vice versa. I think AI has the capability to identify the right candidate and identify the skill gaps. Based on that, maybe creating personalized development plan, and also there will be a area of for talent retention as well. Uh, but I think from previous conversation from Full and Purnika, they were mentioning this ethical part of the AI solution. So there will be lots of investment towards the ethical AI and governance as well. It because of I think even OpenAI released this generative AI platform, it was people adapted like very quickly. I think now maybe 90% of the people might be using it. And whenever AI become widespread, there will be a lot of, I think, stronger emphasis on ethical AI practices and transparency and governance. That's exactly what happened for last few months, if you following, because because certain company has filed a lawsuit against, I don't want to take the names, but against OpenAI because they are concerned about their digital footprint of the, sorry, they are so concerned about the copyright document the humans, right? So and I think so organization will spend a lot of organization put a lot of investment to maybe adopt like comprehensive framework to address the ethical consideration, because at the end of the day AI need to we need to ensure, as an organization we need to ensure that AI has been used responsibly. There will be a lot of nuances as well, like Adil mentioned, maybe tomorrow generative AI no longer be in the conversation, will be something else. But from organization perspective, I think these are the some kind of area that we see a lot of AI applications.
Thanks, Rohan. I think particularly on this section, if I recall correctly, this video will be uploaded to YouTube. Maybe a year from now, we'll do a check-in and see if takes have aged well or not. So yeah, I think we're coming to the latter parts of the discussion. I'll just like to remind anyone in the audience, if they would want to ask any questions, to please put them in the chat. Now, I know before the session, there were some questions that were already entered in, and actually, Ruan, you had touched on something that maybe I'll put to Purnika, which is there's a lot of talk about the enhancement of customer experience and the age of hyper personalization. How do you feel like AI is further developing that? Is it expediting things that we couldn't have possibly thought possible previously? What are your thoughts, particularly on that?
Yeah, I think Adil, customer service and customer experience is, I think, one of the main areas that been highly disrupted with Gen AI for sure. Because with hyper personalization, it's all about creating a personalized experience for the user. So it goes beyond the traditional segmentation based personalization, but you kind of get an individual tailor-made marketing content. It could be a product itself. So there's a lot of room for Gen AI to play, especially in the marketing aspect. So I think there are multiple ways from let's say for a target marketing, it could be a content creation especially for you. So Gen AI can do that in split seconds for you now. Even for that matter, even a short video clip just for you is just a matter of seconds with the Gen AI tools now. So that will revolutionize this hyper personalization based customer experience. And on the other hand, I think with advanced analytics itself, even without Gen AI, you can do much more personalization so that you can get a customized call script just based on your preferences and your behavior with the product in the past. You can get reached out by an agent through a customized call script so that you are willing to listen to that message. And there could be even communication channel preferences based on your real-time behavior, based on your location, time of the day. The best channel that you needs to be reached out can be predicted by a model. I think there are a lot of things in the customer service area, especially I think AI can do a tremendous impact.
Thanks, Purnika. I think pivoting now, I see a few questions again that were submitted before this discussion. There's a common theme of wondering whether what we're in right now is a bubble. And actually, I think one of the viewers had put in a request to say, how do we prepare for the AI winter? And there's a really interesting way of putting it, which is the second phase of developments. Upul, I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you have any thoughts on kind of, okay, like you have that initial huge surge and uplift, right? That comes with these developments. And now it kind of tails off, and it happens a lot with different industries, different developments. What are your thoughts on this?
It's very timely topic actually, and it's not the first time we've had an AI winter. And I would actually I tend to agree that we will actually see a AI winter. Whether it's going to be the next year or in 10 years, I don't know. And I'm actually not going to comment on that, given how fast we are evolving this ecosystem. But that is bound to happen. And the reason why it's bound to happen is that I can also tell you that right now we've actually sort of past the top of the AI hype cycle on the generative AI. We're still hyping that up, we don't actually see as much hype as we used to have, especially with the advent of different OpenAI sort of assistants and things like that. Obviously, the new video generation has actually generated some hype, but if you actually comparatively look at the video generation tool and the hype it created versus the text generation tool and the hype it created, you can always you can almost see there's a stark difference or a significant difference in the level of hype that we can see as well. That could actually be a good indication on whether we are heading towards AI winter or not. But the other part of AI winter is the fact that you're sort of getting to the edges of what is possible technically as well. Because if you historically look at the past AI winters, what has happened is that they've actually been inventing and they've been making a lot of progress, and they've come to a point where at the time the existing technologies weren't really allowing them to progress their algorithms any further, and that's where they actually hit that bottleneck, and then essentially reached the peak, and then tapered it down to a winter. From that perspective, if you actually take today's situation, I think we are actually in a much better condition, and the technological cap we have in terms of where we can deliver or where we can improve our algorithms versus what is allowed or what is possible technically. I think there's much more sort of depth there, depth of improvement that we can introduce there. So it might take a bit of time, but I think it's an eventuality that we'll one day we'll face an AI winter as well, but it'll also come back, and we'll go through the spring, we'll go through the autumns as well, and come to the summer.
The bubble's not going to burst yet, is what you're saying. Thanks, Apu. I think with that, yeah, I think we've had a interesting discussion, covered lots of the different sections of thinking about AI for organizations. Obviously, the heavy topics of ethics and implications of data biases and things like that are topics that need a much wider, longer forum. But we've done I think you've all done a great job of touching on the important concepts there. If I was to ask, and I'm going to time box you all to a very short, brief answer, just one kind of statement. If I was to ask you all from today that you would want the audience to take away in terms of choosing one application of AI or a new development in the industry. I know we talked about it a little bit, but one particular application that you're most excited about that maybe even the audience can take to discuss with their organizations on, what would it be? Maybe Ruan, can I start with you?
Yeah, rather than giving you one sentence, just give me a few minutes because one of my personal interest is how AI is going to be used in energy sector, because I think AI going to revolutionize how energy is produced, distributed, and consuming over the next decade. I think AI said to be new driving force in shaping more sustainable, efficient, and resilient energy sector. So, and the focus will not only be for the technical innovation, but also contribute the global effort for combat climate change. So that is sort of the area of interest of mine.
Excellent. I mean, that's a very significant one. No one that affects everyone and everyone's future. So yeah, that's huge impact, and I think very interesting to think about.
Yeah, I think
Oh, sorry.
to add, Adil, I think there are a lot of things going on that particular field. There are like smart grid and demand response related research and renewable energy optimization related research. Also, energy storage optimization related research is going on. So it's going to be very exciting, and we'll see maybe next few years we can see a lot of good AI application in energy sector.
Thanks, Ruan. Yeah. Monica, what about you? What would you like to highlight as being kind of the most exciting thing at the edge of this industry right now?
I think I explained this earlier as well. Adil, for me, the super excitement is on this video generation, text to video generation. I have big hopes on that, and I wonder how Disney and the likes, how it will react to this. And looking forward to see a movie generated through a text prompt in future. I mean, it's not just the capabilities of the AI system I'm excited about. I want to see the imagination of the human itself, because it's the human imagination that will be prompted via text, right? Then it will generate the content. So I'm super excited to see that limits of the human imagination plus the power of the AI model to generate some sort of super exciting videos in future.
Yeah, I think as you were saying that, I was thinking personally, I would like to generate maybe a panel discussion on this very topic using AI and then compare how well we've done to what the model thinks. I think that would be a good one to look at once we have the technology for that. Yeah. Upul, finally, I think over to you. What would you say you're most excited about with artificial intelligence?
Yeah, thanks, Adil. I think it's very hard to top those answers, Ruan and Purnika. But it looks like Ruan was actually looking at the medium term, and Purnika is actually more looking at the immediate or shorter term. My objectives are actually set much higher to into the future. I am most excited about technological singularity. It's essentially a state where the AI is so powerful to the point where you can actually upload your mind or brain and use that as an AI. How that's going to look like, I don't know, but it is essentially hypothetical state where the AI is so expressive or expressive enough to mimic your whole brain, not just retain knowledge, but it is actually expressive enough, powerful enough to house a whole brain activity, and that's going to open up a whole new dimension of human evolution, and it'll just open up space travel as well, which is one of my pet peeves.
I think that's a much wider spectrum of answers than I was ever expecting with that question, but thank you guys so much for that. And I think with that, we've come up on time. I'd like to thank the panelists once again, Upul, Purnika, Ruan. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you for the audience for staying on. And if you do have any follow-up questions, I'm sure there'll be a survey that'll be sent out later today. Please do fill that in and let us know your thoughts. And we look forward to seeing you at the next edition. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.